realize this is a very, very big task. This is a task for the world, not for a World Academy. And we're just asking ourselves, what can we do? And how much we can do depends on how many partners and collaborators and participants we have in this effort. We've just decided to start with where we are, do what we can. We've been doing research, intensive research, for the last few months to try to understand what's going on, because it's changing so fast. And we decided to come here for our first meeting because this is the place where it's changing fastest. This is the place where it's the center of the innovation. So we really came here to learn. In the process, we created a website, and we've been trying to catalog all that we're learning as we go along. One of the things we found was we really didn't find a comprehensive, reliable, impartial source of information on this that would be useful to the rest of the world. There are many people who have something to offer, which is very valuable, but naturally they're going to emphasize their aspect of it. We've tried to come at it, looking at it from a global perspective and in terms of global needs. So our first very modest goal is to create a site which will be up to date and covering the full spectrum of developments. And that's why we were so eager to learn and listen to all of you. That's why we traveled around meeting as many of you as we could and asked you for your papers so we can put them up there. And we'll continue to update this site and try to link it to all other available information that's available, journals, conferences, and so forth. So there's some place that people can come wherever they're in the U.S. or anywhere else in the world to get the big picture. This is our first step. We've already had requests. Just, is it really this month? No, it was last month. Ivo and I were in Azerbaijan. And we mentioned to the president of Azerbaijan after lunch that we're taking this initiative. We thought it was a casual interaction for a few minutes, and it may not go beyond that. And the next thing we knew, we had a minister coming and signing an MOU and saying we want to collaborate because we must do something. And the next day we were touring one of their major state universities with the president of the university who's saying we really need help and guidance. Even though we have collaboration with a dozen foreign universities, we really need some impartial perspective on what's going on. So we know outside of Silicon Valley, outside of the United States, the amount of misconception or misinformation or lack of information is 100 times greater. And therefore, we're looking at what we can do to facilitate the transfer of information there. From here, we're planning a series of conferences, perhaps another in North America or Central America, and then in Europe and in other places. We'd like to invite many of the participants in this conference to come and share your experiences and stories in other parts of the world so that we can have the same type of interaction with people from different countries and different cultures, understand their needs, we heard from George Breslau yesterday, what are his issues that he's grappling with on a day-to-day, and when we hear from presidents of other universities, we had one from Columbia here, we'll see the picture is different in different places, and that will help us broaden our perspective and approach. There's obviously a lot of research that has to be done, and it was very exciting to hear from Armando and Philip and Candace about some of the research, and Lynn, and some of the research that they're doing to try to really figure out how we make this work. We'd like to encourage that research, find other research institutes that can take it up and join with it. We also feel, as it was the theme today, that in our project on New Paradigm, we've come to the conclusion that solving the crises, the most pressing challenges before the world today, will really require fundamental changes in our theory, in the way we think, and the way we teach. It can't just be settled in the forum of the UN or in the Congress or in policy making. Policy making is based on some ideas and conceptions. And I think we've had enough evidence in recent years to know that many of the ideas on which the bad policies are based are themselves bad, or let's say incomplete or one-sided. And therefore, we're going to have to find ways to bring new content and new ideas into the educational system. We have been interacting with many other organizations which, like ourselves, have ties with academia, are linked with academia, but are not academic institutions. For example, earlier last month, Alberto and I were at the 20th anniversary of the Green Cross International, which Gorbachev set up in just 20 years ago to work on environmental issues. And Green Cross is a highly professional organization. They're helping us in the U.S. dismantle our chemical weapons. They're doing the same thing in Russia. They're helping in India and Africa try to improve water conservation and water productivity. They have a rich reservoir of knowledge that's not necessarily or to a large extent getting back into the educational system because they're too busy in the field. So we're asking how these new technologies and new platforms like OpenEdX and all can help break down some of the natural barriers between Green Cross, whose job is to make the world safer out in the field, and the university whose job it is to educate the next generation. And we're looking to see whether the consortium can somehow be a bridge between these two. That the same is true of Club of Rome, with which we have very close associations and have wonderful expertise on many critical environmental issues, but it tends to be talking out to the world. We want to also see that conversation goes back to the academic community as much as possible. So we're looking at all of these different ways in which the consortium, I'm not talking about the academy now, I'm talking about a consortium of which the academy is trying to be an initiator, we want to open the door to all those who have something to offer and would like to join us in this effort. We've already had Green Cross International, the president just wrote 2 days ago saying he would really like to associate. We met with the Director General of the UN in Geneva, Kaya, who's a fellow of the Academy. He's the number 2 in the UN. And he said there are critical issues before the UN which we would love to see in the educational curriculum. We'd love to see those issues being incorporated. UN has an organization called UNITAR, which is the UN Institute for Training and Research. They're trying to go out to the world. They've just started a master's degree course, credit course in peace. But again, it's separate from the traditional university structure. We think the future is the university is going to be, the walls are going to thin, and we want to see if we can bring that in and make it part of an integral offering. So these are some of the ideas, and our purpose in scheduling this time today is we want to hear your ideas too. And we want to hear the ideas. That's why we're going around and meeting different organizations. Those who have something to contribute, those who see a need, those who have ideas about what can be done. And this would be a good time, I think, just to open it up and ask for any comments, suggestions, ideas, questions, criticisms, doubts, whatever may be there, because that will help us. We need that interaction to go forward.